Why are gap percentages so important for traders, or wondering what the heck it is? Stay tuned as we'll show you how to use them, how big to make them, and why you need to care. Let me break down the problem that we face. If you look at any retracement time pattern where both the Fibonacci time and price levels all come together, the B point has a requirement to be at a 618 level. Let me ask you something now. If the point of measurement at this ratio is to be measured out at a 617, not a 618, it's 617, does this mean that the pattern is no longer valid? Now, of course, there's only two possible answers for this question. You're sitting there going, no, it's not valid because it has to be a 618, or you're sitting there going, yes, it is valid because it's close enough. So here's why it is important and why it matters. With stocks and futures, everything gets traded at the same price because everything is done on one exchange. Your commission and what you pay is then added on top of that and never really affects price. However, if you're doing this with FX, you'll know that there isn't one central exchange and that price can be slightly different for everyone. And that slight difference can be easily affected into a ratio number like the one that we just said in our example, going from a 618 to a 617 depending on your spread. If you wanted to do a test, load up a few different data feeds and you'll notice that price is different and that some ratios are different too. And this is why we want to use things like gap percentages so that we cover that slight change and difference in price that might be close enough to making a valid pattern, but might not be the exact number you might be looking for. So if you were part of that other crowd that answered number 2, which was that your 617 is still valid because you're close enough to a 618, then you're following the same idea that it would be valid because everyone else could see something slightly different, right? And if that's the case, then the 618 is not some magical number. Although it is a fib number, it doesn't have magical properties, and that a 617 is going to be close enough. So getting back to gap percentages, if you're using our tool, you can go into the control center, go down to our XABCD properties, and you will see it underneath the global configuration options. You would put your percentage here. Now this percentage is what gives you that wiggle room. If you were to set a 10% value, this will give you a 5% change in both directions. So a 618 might be valid, but you will also get valid patterns that go between a 5.6.8 and a 6.6.8. The best part about this is you get to configure how much wiggle room you want to give each pattern. So let's have a look at what this can produce. You can watch this video here on historical patterns. I'll put a link in the description as well, and how to turn them on. Okay, this is going to be what we've done so that you can see how many patterns are actually going to be displayed. These are the number of patterns with a 10% gap. Now let's put the gap percentage to 5%. And finally, let's put it at 0%, meaning the B point has to be exactly a 618. So if any of you were answering the question that 61.7 would be invalid, you can see how few the 618 actually shows up, if at all. Okay, this is why we need the gap percentage. How flexible you want to be is going to be a personal preference, but the point is that we do need some flexibility since everyone's going to be seeing something slightly different as a price, and this is going to have a profound impact on the ratios. What this also means is that magical numbers do not exist, as you've kind of proven to yourself when setting a gap percentage for your ratios. Numbers can be used as a guideline to project repeating patterns of human emotions. And if you really want to see how that works, you can always create your own custom pattern with our software, and you can go back and you can turn on all the historical patterns to see those ratios and those patterns and see how that gets affected. So that's something else that you can try. So you understand why it's important to have these gap percentages, right? Don't forget to go into your XABCD properties to set up your gap percentages because you'll want to know how frequent or infrequent the patterns are going to happen based off how wide that gap percentage is. So how much wiggle room do you want? That's the ultimate question. How close we have to get to that 61.8? for that pattern to be shown on your charts. So this automatically will be applied for our self-validating drawing tools, as well as our fully automatic real-time pattern indicator, as well as the market scanner. Now don't forget, we do have 2 free tools for NT8. One draws a price line across your chart at current price, which really helps when you look at historical levels, as well as one that draws news events, both past and future news events on your chart. So go ahead and grab those. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell if you want the instant notifications. You can check out our next video that way, as well as you can check out our previous videos on the channel, as there's tons of content to explore.